Hello and welcome to the Republica Unicornia podcast. I'm Kathleen and I am the head yarn wench of Republica Unicornia. I am an indie yarn dyer, a project bag maker, and a creative hot mess, frankly. So this is where I talk about what is going on in the world of Republica Unicornia. So there's gonna be knitting, there's gonna be sewing, there's gonna be all kinds of I'm gonna talk about wildlife, like there's a lot going on. Before we jump in, welcome back if you are a returning viewer, and if you are new here, I'm glad you stumbled on to this moderately wholesome crafting podcast instead of like weird alt-right nonsense. So good job, algorithm. Just before we get going, also a little warning, I don't censor my language, so if you are sensitive to the full range of the English language and you are allergic to some mild to moderate swearing, this is not the podcast for you. If you are expecting that your podcasts are soothing and calming, this is also not the podcast for you. But if you are here for crafty chihuahua energy, then welcome. It's good to have you here. I hope you are grabbing a beverage. I am having, and I know people don't care about this, but I love hot beverages and I have nice pottery and I'm going to talk about it. So I'm having a latte, just a like straight up latte, which means I'm gonna be extra caffeinated because I'm mainly a tea drinker, so sorry. Latte in a new mug from my friend Jensen, who is After Hours Pottery, and her stuff is amazing. And we had a festival last weekend in Atlanta and I was able to pottery goblin. Look, I don't buy yarn. This is my excuse, is I don't buy yarn, so I just buy all the pottery and support my friends and buy all the pottery. So chances of me like not having foam all over my mouth and choking during this are slim to none. So we're gonna talk, here's our outline. Look, I even made a list. We're gonna talk about a knitting finished object, some knitting whips, some sewing finished objects, some sewing plans. Like we got lots going on. I have been a little MIA. And we will talk about this too, I had a big event at the end of April, which I'm very excited to tell you about, but I like basically disappeared into production mode for 6 weeks. So I think the last time we chatted was like March, maybe, probably. So lots going on. And like when I'm in full production mode, I'm not making anything except for like, I'm dyeing yarn, I'm making bags, but like you don't want to see me pop in here not having washed my hair in 6 days and be like, I made some yarn. It's not interesting. So, because this is where I get to talk about what I'm making for funsies too. So, I've been gone. It's fine. I hope everyone's getting their spring off to a nice start. It has been weirdly chilly in Atlanta, so it doesn't feel like summer yet, which is nice and also disorienting. So, let's start with some knitting. So, I think last time I talked about this. This was a whip. I haven't actually done finished object photos of this yet, and I'm going to show it poorly because it's a sweater and it's floppy. So this is the Honey Bop cardigan by Poison Grrls. Oh my gosh, I should have put it on hang. Look, I don't know what I'm doing. It is a fairly, like, construction-wise, I mean, it's interesting to knit. Like, it's interesting construction-wise, but it's a fairly, I don't know, it's a Kathleen basic silhouette. So it is puff sleeves. I don't know if I find a buttonhole. Puff sleeves and a v-neck. Here you can see about it. There we go. So it's got little puff sleeves. I made it a little cropped. It's got buttons. The sleeves are really good. And I made it long sleeve because 3/4 length sweaters are not really my jam. So I made it long sleeve. The yarn is mine in pure BFL, so it's 100% superwash BFL. In St. Mary Mead 235. It is named for and inspired by Miss Marple. It's very deep in my soul and also my brain. I like it. I've been wearing it. It's a good color. It's like, it's showing up a little, it's like maybe a teeny bit more purple in real life. So it's like a good, I love a dusty, I notoriously don't like pink, but I just don't like chalky pastel pink. So this is like a pink that looks good on a redhead. So it's a little more saturated. I did not do anything responsible like alternating skeins because I dye my own yarn. I figure if I have issues, it's my own damn fault, so I don't. So I enjoy knitting it. I don't love knitting flat. I don't. My tension's really different. I'm a continental knitter, so my purl tension is really loose. It can be a whole thing. So anyway, I did this. I also made the buttons. Oh gosh. Okay, there we go. Can you see these? They're very cute. They are they're like Art Deco style buttons, and they are thermal color change. Hold on, let's see if we can science this. Just in real time. No, it's not gonna work, and I'm not gonna dip it in my coffee, but they do change color, so they go from this like the same color as the yarn to like kind of an obnoxious chalky pink. I am obsessed with thermal color change pigments right now. I use them in my buttons. I am using them in the buttons that I have on now, but you can't tell because I'm not hot. But I have been buying nail polish with this in it. So like this is my nail polish is chipped, but you can see it. And it goes from like a dark, like an avocado green to this kind of grass green to like a acid chartreuse. And I am endlessly fascinated by watching color changes. And it's great. It stops me from being bored. So good things. So anyway, I've really been enjoying this. It'll get a lot of wear. It's a good spring color, but I think it also like with a burgundy could be a fall winter. So yeah, I'm trying. It's interesting. I've been knitting long enough, and since I also make all of my own clothes, the way that I knit has started to change a little bit, and I'm thinking a little more intentionally about where items are going to fit in my wardrobe, when I'm going to wear them, and like picking colors accordingly. And it means that I'm doing a lot less fun bonkers neon stuff, but it does mean that I'm getting garments that I wear a lot of. So a fingering weight, puff sleeve, dusty purple pink sweater slots right in, so it'll get lots of wear. I also, like a week and a half ago, we'll go in chronological order. So I haven't been knitting. I learned how to knit socks. I don't know, maybe like 2 months after I started knitting. That was kind of like when I learned how to knit, I was like, I want to make socks because I like socks. So I knit for years, tons. I dropped a cable needle. Knit tons of vanilla socks, like tons. I have a giant sock drawer because it was what I would knit when like we were out and about, and I get car sick, but I can knit stockinette in the car. And so like when we were travel, I just knit socks. I like knit an entire pair of socks standing in line at Disney World on vacation one time. So I knit lots and lots of vanilla socks. Well, when COVID hit and I was like never leaving the house again, I pretty much stopped. And I always have at least one on the needles because like, you know, you wait sometimes and they get done eventually, but I'm not producing socks. And I don't want to knit a vanilla sock at home. I get bored. And so I figured out that if there's a sweet spot for me for socks where they're not so complex that I like need all of my focus on them, but they're complex enough to be interesting. So I've been knitting, in the last year or so, I've knit some more interesting socks, and I'm having a really nice time. I also, for years, used the Addy Easy Knit small circumference circulars. They're not 9-inch. They're actually like 10.5, and one needle is longer than the other, so they're more comfortable. I find I think Haya makes 9-inch circs, Chiagu does, and like just the tips are really small, and it's like knitting with toothpicks, and I hate it. But the Addies have a needle that's a little bit longer, so in your right hand you have something else to grab onto. So I like them, but they're a little dull and they're not great for pattern socks. So my friend Alex designed a fabulous pair of brioche socks in my honor called the Unicorns and Peacock socks. I will link below. And I wanted to make them, and they use a 00 needle, which Addy does not make a 00 small circumference circular. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to use magic loop. I have been historically rather resistant to magic loop as a technique. The laddering was an issue. Like, it feels awkward and slow in comparison just to going around and around and around. But finally I was like, okay, well, I want to make these. I have to make these socks. And I actually really enjoyed knitting a pattern sock on magic loop, and it was comfortable and it was fine. And so I've been incorporating magic loop into my knitting a lot more. So I'm using it on sleeves. It's nice because then you don't have to like find the specific size, and it's, especially if you use interchangeables, it's easy to change stuff around. Anyway, so magic loop is on the menu. I'm still never going to do a toe up sock, but because I learned so early on in my knitting life that like I can't learn new things. So anyway, so these are on magic loop, and this is the okay, wait, let me talk about the yarn first. No, I'm not gonna talk about the yarn first. I'm gonna talk about the pattern first. These are the Magnolia socks by Helen Stewart, and I think that Helen Stewart is Curious Handmade. I think that Helen Stewart's sock patterns, they like hit that magical sweet spot for me, and like there's an interesting stitch pattern, so it's not plain vanilla, but they're not so complicated that you have to like constantly look at charts. You can memorize this repeat, and this is probably, I think, on the more complex end of her patterns, and it's a cable and lace repeat. Well, you do it so much, eventually you memorize it, and the back is plain stockinette. So I cast this on, and it was super just keep on going, fun stuff. So it's got, and I'll show you on the actual sock, it's hard to see on the blocker. So it's got a cable, there's two cables and a lace central panel. And it has just been so incredibly enjoyable to work on. I haven't worked on them in a minute because I cast on something new, which I will talk about. But you can, I don't know if you can see, so you can see, look at how beautiful that is. And they fit beautifully. They have a twisted rib cuff. I've just really enjoyed it. I do find I have to go down a needle size on her patterns, but that's also a me problem. So I'm thoroughly enjoying these. I'm through I think I have like another, I think like 5 or 6 repeats on the second foot. So let's talk about the yarn. Obsessed. I am slightly embarrassed by how much I enjoy my own yarn. And then I talk about it and everyone's like, well, yeah, you made it. But like, I do really love it. So this is Callisto, and it is not showing up in all of its glory. It's looking very like gray and sort of monotone here. This is a newer colorway. It is one that I do not have quite the level of control over that I do in some of my other colorways, but it feels like painting and I really enjoy it. It is inspired by a NASA photo of a storm on Jupiter and is named for one of the moons of Jupiter. And I just, every time I dye it, I like lose it really doesn't look that exciting. I promise it's exciting. It's like a dusty gray purple. It has little bits of like, there's some pink in it. There's some rust in it. Like sometimes it's speckly, a little speckly. Sometimes it's a little splotchy. Like it just is so interesting to work with. And this is merino sock. So my merino sock base is one that I forget to talk about sometimes because merino is not my general favorite wool. However, my base is an 80-20 domestic merino, and it is thick, it is spun tightly, and it's not just like soft and floppy. It doesn't prickle at all, so it is soft in that sense, but it's got some body to it, and I have really, really, really enjoyed it. And especially in socks, because it's on the heavy end of fingering, it knits up at a really, like it's just a little thicker than sort of your standard 75-25 merino nylon that we all use the same mills. It's not a big secret, but it's got a little bit more oomph than that, and it feels really good in socks. It's also not very shiny. Like I feel like the other kind has a little bit of a luster to it, so it's a little more matte. Anyway, I'm really enjoying it, obviously, but it's just been very fun, and it feels, I knit so many garments that socks feel fast. I think I knit I got most of the way through these in a couple of weeks with just knitting when I felt like it. So I would like to finish these up. I think my next pair of socks is going to be, I think I might even have the yarn. I do. Okay, well, we'll talk about that when I talk about projects. Okay, so those are on the needles. The other thing that has gotten onto my needles, I've talked about this before, is Susan Crawford is a British knitwear designer who specializes in updating and making more size inclusive vintage patterns. And she often works from existing vintage patterns, regrades them, rewrites the instructions, because if you've ever tried to knit a vintage pattern, it's like, what does this even mean? Pattern writing conventions change, understandings of your base knowledge change, whatever, it's fine. But a lot of times the vintage patterns are available in one size, and it's usually like a 32-inch bust, which is great if you have a 32-inch bust and less great if you are literally everyone else. So she has done a couple of these, and the most recent one, it is only available as, I've talked about it before, but I will just be a free commercial. It is only available as an ebook, and patterns are dropping it's like every 6 to 8 weeks you get a new pattern. It's not, I think the ebook was like $30, and like there are a lot of patterns in it. So it is an excellent value. You can buy it at any time, and then you get the backlog. So basically it's my knitting queue for the next 2 years. Like every time something new comes, because volume 3 of A Stitch in Time is all color work, and color work is my favorite thing to knit. And so I'm just like losing my mind. 2 of these projects on the needles right now, yarn for a 3rd one. Like I'm gonna talk about this a lot. But the most recent one that she released, which I literally was refreshing my inbox like every hour that day because I was so ready for it, is what she's calling the Jojo sweater. It is a vintage pattern that, if you have seen the movie Jojo Rabbit, it is the one that Scarlett Johansson wears at one point. Gosh, the clothes in that movie are so good. And then the set design, their living room. Anyway, so it's a puff sleeve, square neckline, and it's called the Rainbow Jumper, and it uses like little bits and bobs of yarn. It's a very make do and mend 1930s, 1940s thing. The silhouette is good. It's my favorite. And I've eyed the vintage pattern for a long time, and as soon as I found out that Susan Crawford was going to make it easy for my dumb modern American self, I was like, yes, please. So I swatched for it, and I will say you need to know your colors. She gives you some options. I think she sells kits on her website, but it's her yarn company's in the UK and Brexit and stuff. You can use scraps. You can use whatever you want. I would highly recommend swatching, and I would highly recommend that you have some understanding of color theory. Because I do color professionally, and it took me a couple of shots. So those are my recommendations. But here it is. So it's a bottom up, which I'm learning this. I've been knitting seriously for 6 years. Seriously, like it's my job for 6 years. And I am just learning as I get into more vintage style knitwear that my row gauge is completely messed up. And like, I can't, it doesn't seem to matter which way it goes, it's going to be messed up. So I went down, the yarn she uses is her Excelana 4-ply, which is a little bit thicker than this is BFL sock and pure BFL. So this is it's a light fingering. And the recommended yarn is a heavier fingering. And I did swatch, like I was responsible. And I got stitch gauge on, I think I'm a size down from the pattern recommendation for needles. So I think this is a US 2 and she recommends a US 3. Fine, that's kind of standard for me. I also know it's superwash, so it's gonna grow a little bit. I like the fabric it's making, but I was getting stitch gauge, so it'll fit. Except row gauge, hers for the pattern, it is 44 rows per 10 centimeters, 4 inches. Mine is 56. But the good news is it's flexible enough. I can just add pattern repeats. I'm not really worried. I will deal with the sleeves when I get to them. So it's just something I have to keep in mind. Just a part of knitting. Like stitch gauge you can fix by going up or down a needle size. Row gauge kind of just feels like what it is. And so I have to be aware of that when I do vintage style bottom up knits, which I didn't even know because I've been doing sort of modern top-down stuff for so long that I didn't even, you just stop when it's long enough. It is much more complicated in vintage knits, especially if there's a color work chart or a stripe pattern or anything like that. So we're just gonna make it work. It's worth it. So here it is. So it's I think I did, it calls for 4 inches of ribbing and I got bored. So it's like 3 1/4, which is fine because I know it's going to grow a little bit because it's super wash, and also I'm short-waisted. It's fine because the short length I think is 12 inches and my preferred crop length is more like 11. It'll be fine. So it's a super simple stitch pattern, and it's mosaic knitting, so you don't have to, you only hold one color at a time. You get this by slipping stitches. It's super fun to play with the colors, and I think it's going to be really cute. I was a little afraid because when I first started, it was like a lot of the gold. This is Harvest Gold. This is all my yarn. It was Harvest Gold, and I was like, oh, I think it's gonna look tacky with all the brighter colors, but I think it's starting to work. I was having a hard time because this is the wardrobe planning part, is I wanted something that I could wear because it's a 3/4 or a half length. And I wanted something that I could wear in fall and spring, and so figuring out the color palette. I think I ended up a little more springy, but that's okay. If I hate it, like on me and with my clothes, I can use it as a shop sample because it is a good way to feature yarn, and you can use scraps. I'm not measuring how much I'm using, but it's not a lot. I think there are 7 or 8 colors, including the main color. So you can also, the pattern includes options for all kinds of different, like you can do 3 colors and 4 colors, and she gives you how to do that. It's a very well-written pattern. I'm really enjoying it. The row gauge is just a me thing. So this has been very fun. It's fun to pick up. It's easy to memorize. It's, there's color changes. So each stripe is 4 rows. So you're not doing a ton of the same thing over and over again. And I think it's going to be cute. So I'm really enjoying that. So those are my whips. It's actually, besides the languishing ones, but we're not going to talk about those. So that is what is going on. I don't have a lot of knitting plans. This is kind of an odd time of year for me because I really start getting into fall garment knitting in like June and July, but I'm not there yet. So I'm just kind of rolling with it. I'm sewing a lot, which we'll talk about momentarily. But I think once I finish my Magnolia socks, my next pair of socks are going to be, I think I'm going to do the Jacqueline Salem's Clark socks. I've had them on my radar since she published the pattern, 5-6 years ago. They're cabled. I feel pretty confident with my magic loop ability to memorize, understand cables. I've been knitting, cables are not hard, I just hadn't done a ton of them. So I think I'm going to do them in Dirty Old Town. This is, I think this is BFL sock. In fact, I know it's BFL sock. It is a gross, scummy green, full-on pond scum, my favorite color in the whole world. So I'm gonna have some pond scum green cable socks, which will be lovely. So that's what's going on with yarn stuff. I definitely feel right now like I'm enjoying knitting with my own yarn. I get like that. I use commercial yarn. I use commercial rustic woolen spun yarns a lot, but I think some of it's also weather, but I'm really enjoying knitting with some superwash and making some fun things. So that is what is going on in knitting. Okay, so sewing. It is, which I guess this is also relevant to knitting, it is currently Me Made May. And if you are not a chronically online crafting wardrobe person like I am, Me Made May was started several years ago by Sozu Blog. I will link. And it's basically a pledge to wear your clothes that you make. And it helps you identify holes in your wardrobe, see what you really wear, like what colors could kind of help with planning. It is not primarily a buy all the new patterns, make all the new things, buy all the fabric, look cute on Instagram. But of course, the internet happens, and so it's also that now. I love Me Made May. I did not always, but I love it because it just kind of helps remind me that this is what I'm doing. I wear handmade clothes every day. Unless I am in the studio getting sweaty and gross and I'm wearing $6 leggings from the kids section at Target and a Decemberist t-shirt, I wear my clothes and I wear all of them. I'm pretty intentional. There's a couple things from when I first started sewing that I don't wear very much, but I just get dressed. That's just what I do. But I do really enjoy seeing what everybody is up to, and I like the reminder. For me, having a handmade wardrobe is kind of just at this point is part of my life. It's my hobby. It's part of my rhythm. It's just part of me that it's nice to be like, oh yeah, I actually do this thing. So, I did not always like it. I don't know if I've talked about this here. I had a really, really horrible, wretched start to garment sewing, very bad. So garment sewing is really hard, and even beginning patterns assume that you know what you're doing. I had been sewing bags for maybe a year at that point, and I completely taught myself. I had not touched a sewing machine before 2018. Never. Maybe once. But we didn't have one when I was growing up. It was not a thing. And I taught myself how to sew because I wanted to make project bags. And I did, and then I started selling project bags, and that was great. And I got my process down, and I understood it. I understood nothing about garment sewing. And there was at the time, a pattern designer who, her stuff was close to my style, which my style has evolved a lot since then, but was close to what I was wearing at the time, and had this reputation for being this very good for beginners because the patterns were detailed. I'm not gonna name drop. I'm not gonna drag this person because people really like them and brains work differently, but I found it totally incomprehensible, and the level of detail was such that it was if you don't do this thing, your garment's going to fall apart. Well, no. And it was the most complicated, convoluted way to draft patterns, explain patterns, and have sewing instructions ever. And I spent and we were we're also super broke at the time. It was right after I started Republica Unicornia. And I just spent an entire summer failing, bad. And I hadn't failed at a lot of craft things. Like I was knitting socks 2 months after I picked up knitting needles for the first time. Like I have whatever natural aptitude there is toward needlecraft, I probably have it. And it was so demoralizing. And I was just like, I guess I can't do this. And I was so gutted because I wanted to make my own clothes. Like I listened to the Love to Sew podcast. Like I was in the world, but it was like I couldn't get all the way in. And it was so bad and just so, I was just like, I'm just not capable. Maybe my brain just doesn't work this way. I didn't try again for 2 years. And finally, my awesome friend Emily makes her clothes. And I was like, Emily's brain and my brain are not that different. And she's figured this out. Maybe I should try again. And I tried a different pattern designer. And the pattern, I will name drop here because like she saved my sewing life, was made by Rae. And I think I made the Trillium. I like bought the pattern years before and then I just gave up. I hadn't even looked at this pattern because this other designer had so much hype around how good they were. And I was like, well, if I can't understand the good one, I might as well not. And so I made the Made by Rae Trillium dress. And like the first one was okay, but it made something resembling sense to me, which was my in. And so that was almost exactly 2 years ago. And so I know it looks like I've been doing this longer. I have been sewing bags professionally for a long time. And also I have a lot more time than your average human to devote to this. So I get to practice a lot more. So that's what you really see. So I do not hate me May anymore. I don't feel left out, but this is my little pep talk that if you are having a hard time, it may be the pattern designer. Also, the more fit adjustments you have to make, the harder shit is. And so even on that wonderful Trillium pattern, I ended up doing a petite bodice, a small bust adjustment, and a narrow shoulder adjustment to get it to fit. Like it took multiple iterations to get it to fit right. And I still have to do a lot of fitting stuff to most patterns. So this is just my pep talk that it isn't easy. And like, it's really hard on social media, especially this month, to see people who just seem to like wake up and like make garments. Was not my experience at all. Oh, and I kind of hated it until last week. I don't hate it, but I have very much been a product sewist and not a process sewist. And it's only after years of practicing and more than dozens of garments that it finally feels like something besides a struggle. So if you are anywhere in your sewing process where you're like, this sucks, why does anybody enjoy this? I feel you, I hear you, and I see you. And I promise it gets a little better. And then it's like really worth it. And you're like, oh, I'm a genius. And then you get to make all the like 1940s puff sleeve stuff that you want. The end. Okay, that's my pep talk. I did a reel of a pep talk, but this is like my like more. It's hard and it brings up stuff and also it's worth it. So anyway, sewing. So I'm going to show you what I'm wearing. It's what I always wear. I have a uniform. I was always the person who bought the same like long sleeve t-shirt in every color, and I'm just like that now. I just make it. So I am wearing, this is the Smooth Sailing Blouse by Wearing History, made in a very fancy Liberty lawn print that has, tits on the internet, that has blackberries on it. My favorite. We have wild blackberries in our yard, and it's blackberry season, and so I wanted a top for blackberry season. I love this. Gosh, this top is so good. So good. I made 0 fit modifications. It's fun to sew. It goes in my wardrobe. It is amazing. I am also wearing the pant. Okay, there will be an Instagram photo of this at some point, so don't worry. I am wearing the Smooth Sailing trousers. So the pattern has the blouse and the trousers in it. And these are the best pants ever to exist in the history of the world, and no others need apply. I have struggled with pants fitting my entire life, and these are amazing, and they feel like pajamas. And they are 3 pattern pieces, so they are like not a big deal to sew. If you have made pajama pants, you can make these pants, and they make you look automatically put together. They have worked in every fabric I have thrown at them. This is a cotton linen blend. It's the Robert Kaufman Essex in the plum colorway, and it's the perfect dusty purple. I love a dusty purple. They've worked in, I just made a pair yesterday in 100% linen. Amazing, drape amazing. I have made them in a yarn dyed cotton woven. amazing. I've made them in a crappy $6 a yard stands up on its own twill from Mood Fabrics. Also amazing. I wear them all the time. I have made them in a pinwheel corduroy. I don't think there is a fabric that these pants will not work in because they are somehow amazing flowy and amazing structured. And I love them. Oh, I am going to show y'all this. Maybe not. I have to go look on Instagram. I'm sorry. I don't know how anything works. I did add pockets. So this is the pocket bag from the Made by Rae Clio skirt pattern, which is another ride or die pattern. And they're like sewn into the waistband because you don't want inseam pockets on pants like this because they're just gonna like pull and be weird. So they're super cute. They're easy to sew. You basically just match the curve. You like cut out from your pants pattern piece. You match the curve to the curve of the pockets. Super simple to do. So now I am unstoppable because they have pockets. So anyway, I have a ridiculous amount of fabric lined up for these, but I'm excited. I think what I'm going to do at some point, I have a bunch of summer ones, which is great. So a lot of like linens and really light cottons. And then I think in the fall, I'm going to try to do a more structured pair in corduroy, probably the Robert Kaufman 14 wale, the like mid wale corduroy, and do button plackets. So they're like sailor pants. I didn't know you could love pants. I have been wearing skirts since I was a teenager because pants don't fit, and I'm like, these are amazing. So it's great. I'm very comfortable, and I look really put together. Really put together, and they're amazing, and I love them so much, and we're very happy together. So that's what I've been doing. It's just pants. So another thing I did this week, and I'm not wearing it because I got chocolate on the collar yesterday. So if you are new here, you may not know this. I am very into, I'd say like everyday fashion, like everyday clothes from about 1925 to 1945 is very much my style wheelhouse at the moment. Hence the pants, hence the like 1930s, 1940s puff sleeve collar blouse situation. And I'm having a really good time with this. It works with my favorite era of knitwear. So like basically if you have seen it on All Creatures Graded Small or like Home Fires or also parts of Poirot, I'm here for all of that and I love it. So I saw this blouse pattern, I think it was the owner of Freeman's Creative in Raleigh or Durham, made this and I lost my mind. This is not a pattern company that I normally gravitate towards because it's very like, it's not really my style. Like the stuff's lovely and people love it, but it's not my personal style. It's a lot more modern, like again, not extra on Poirot, right? So not really my jam. And I saw this and I was like, I need that. And I lost my brain over it because that is how I roll. So it is the Patina blouse by Friday Pattern Company and holy 1920s collar. And it has puff sleeves. These look crooked. So I ordered the pattern. I had it printed. And I was like, okay. So I did a partial mock-up of it. And I will talk about my mods that I did. It was an absolute delight to sew. First of all, I squeezed it out of 1.5 yards of fabric. Now, I do not recommend this. I was the smallest size. So like if you're a normal sized human, probably not 1.5 yards. But I think 2 yards. And I shortened the sleeves because I also know my body. The pattern, like if you go look at the hashtag, the sleeves are like elbow length and I'm also short and it wouldn't be a cute look on me. So here it is in all of its glory. Do you see the chocolate on the collar? I was eating a Blondie. I'm a mess. So just an absolute delight to sew. I did do a 1.5 inch petite bodice adjustment. So this is the thing about sewing your own clothes is you like learn why your clothes have never fit your entire life and then you can fix it. And it sucks, but you can fix it. So I'm short-waisted, which means that most of my height, such as it is, I'm 5'2". Most of my height is in my legs. I also am a petite. So so not only is my waist like higher than whatever, standard, I don't have as much distance between my shoulder and like my boobs as someone who's not my proportions. So what that means is often like when I would buy sleeveless clothes, I would have to like have them altered, and they got like yanked up in the shoulder to get them to sit right elsewhere. Well, you can make that adjustment when you sew your own clothes. It's called a petite bodice adjustment, and you just take length out of the pattern between your like boobs and the shoulder. And it's the best adjustment. It's an easy one to do. I will link to my favorite tutorial below, and it has revolutionized my clothes. And so pretty much everything I make does that, needs to have that adjustment done. I can get it, like I didn't do it in this because of the style of the shirt, but like it could have probably used it and would fit slightly better, but it's fine. It's really noticeable if there's darts in the bust, because like when I made my mock-up of the Patina blouse, the dart was like 2 inches down here. It was like nowhere near my bust at all. So that is the adjustment that I made, and then I shortened the sleeves, but that's it, which is pretty unusual. Again, it's a flowy kind of thing, so you don't have to do quite as much in the fit department for tailoring as like a really structured kind of thing, but it was so fun to sew. Oh my gosh, the instructions were so clear. I think I've gotten used to sort of more vintage style patterns, which a lot of the pattern companies that do those, like, it's just not the same level of hand holding as the modern indie pattern designers. Like the wearing history stuff, like I was glad I'd sewn a top before because it made sense to me. But if I hadn't, I think it would have been a little more challenging. So lots of hand holding, but also really thoughtful construction details. So it is partially lined. Oh my gosh, it's just so smart. I'm going to open and show. I did finished object photos on Instagram, but I did not show all of this. So I'm very excited to show y'all all of the fanciness. Also, any sewing wonkiness, this fabric is a yarn dyed woven cotton, and it's not quite as crispy as like a poplin would be. So it is like a little messier than maybe my normal sewing would be. So there's no exposed seams in the yoke. It's got a facing that goes all the way down. This is like a really clever thing. I think I'm going to use this technique next time I make the Carolyn pajamas, because that collar situation is a freaking nightmare on that pattern. And I have made like 12 pairs of the pajamas, like, and it's still, I hate it. So I'm thinking about maybe incorporating this into other things. And I think I might do the yoke method for this blouse, because there is exposed, it's serged, but there's exposed seams from the gathering, and this was really easy to do. It's just a really thoughtful thing. And so the only places that there, and I do use an overlocker, a serger. Overlocker, am I British now? I use a serger, and I don't want to hear it. I'm not French seaming anything. I need my clothes to be able to be thrown in the wash, and I don't want to baby them, and I don't like sewing enough to do it this like level of couture finish. Like, it's just not going to happen. Team serger, I'm glad I have one. So the side seams are serged. You can see the side seams are serged. There's my dart. I haven't washed it yet, so there's still blue pen on it. The side seams are serged and the sleeves are serged. Oh, and you set the sleeves in flat and they're puffed. I mean, it was just an absolute joy to make. I think I cut fabric at 5 p.m. and I had most of a blouse by like 9 with a dinner break. Very fun. There's a couple of things I'm going to do differently. One is I'm going to widen the facing. It calls for 1/2 inch buttons. The buttons that I make, the mold that I have is 3/4 of an inch. And I tend to like kind of drama buttons, like the ones on, like these are an inch. And so I just added 1/2 inch to the facing. And so it'll just, this part will be a little bit wider. Also, this is the bottom hem. I need to trim it. So one thing funny about sewing is like you find after you wash stuff and wear it, just like threads come out of nowhere and you have to trim them. So this is, it's just folded. It's just like a folded hem. I actually really like the technique where you open up the, before you understitch the facing down, you open it up and then you like do things, there's turning. Anyway, it's like a kind of a standard thing. The smooth sailing blouse does it too. So this is a little bit less bulky here because I don't love this like bulky bit, but it's tucked in. I mean, I don't care that much. But I think I just might do that. Those are such minor things. So I have fabric lined up in undisclosed amounts on its way. for additional ones. I think I'm also going to do the long sleeve version in the fall. I've never done a sleeve placket and I'm mildly terrified, but the other instructions were so good. Oh, there's also a sew along. There's a whole YouTube video and she goes through step by step what you do. I mean, just such a friendly pattern, and it was such a nice change from my like trying to figure stuff out. So I love it. I wore it yesterday. It looks amazing with my smooth sailing trousers. It is very much in my life. I really do like it in this cotton woven. This line, or the company, is Diamond Textiles, and they make my favorite wovens. They're embroidered, and I actually haven't had any issues with snagging. I have quite a few things made in this, and they're just so soft and drapey, and they're not crisp cotton. They're just like a really soft cotton, and I've really enjoyed this fabric. And so there's all different colors, and I'll link to where I get mine from. Be buying all my scum greens. You're welcome. So anyway, it's beautiful. The collar's amazing. It's super 20s. I love it. I am planning on making another one possibly today. So that's the Patina blouse. Highly recommend. Oh, it's also size inclusive. It goes up to, I think, like either a 60 or a 62 inch bust. So excellent. We love to see it. So that is going on. Let's talk about some sewing schemes. We're going to be a little long. I haven't talked to y'all in a while. So I have a couple sewing schemes brewing. My issue with sewing is I do have to do quite a bit in the fit department to things. Everybody does in some way, but like I can't just, anyone who can just like take a pattern and cut it out of the envelope, I'm very confused by, because I can't do that. And especially as I get more into more complicated vintagey style knits, or not knits, sewing projects, that like it just gets more complicated, and I really have to have the brain space for it. And I have the brain space for it occasionally, but it wears me out. Like even the Patina blouse that I did a partial mock-up for, I was like, ugh. So I have a thing where I definitely accumulate patterns faster than I can make them, because like if you have to go through, do a mock-up, do fitting adjustments, sew the thing, like you do it multiple times and it's kind of exhausting. So I really do have to be in the headspace for it. So I have a couple of things lined up. This is probably going to be the next one because it's small, but also it's a folkwear pattern, so it could be something. So this is it's 1920s, 30s underpants. It's not really underpants. It is the Folkwear Intimacies. It is I'm going to be doing the camisole. I don't know if you can see. The camisole, this is like the line drawing, but whatever. It's a camisole and tap pants. And it's super cute. I don't have any real like summer PJs. It gets hot in Atlanta, and I don't have any real summer PJs. I have a problem with shorts in general because they kind of like ride up my butt when I'm sleeping and it's uncomfortable, but we shall see. These are so cute, and it's got a little like ribbon drawstring. It's super like, it's really, really femme. And I just think it would be so cute to have a little matching camisole and short set, and hopefully I don't ride up my butt. But I have to muslin it, and also, okay, I love folkwear patterns. I do. Because I can have things, like I can have a Edwardian walking skirt. But oh my gosh, their instructions are terrible. They're like incomprehensible. And there's like a lot of hand sewing that seems unnecessary to me. And also they're like, I always have to do a lot of bodice adjustments. Now, this is a camisole, but I'm like pretty sure I'm gonna have to do some boob stuff to it anyway. I sound real excited about it, but they're so cute, and I could have really cute summer jammies, and I could make them in like a Liberty lawn. Oh, I think both pieces together use like 1.5 yards of fabric, so it's a really good use of fabric, and I'll get there. But this is the fabric that I picked up. It's Luna Moths. It's a Charlie Harper print. And so this is the Birch Organics quilting cotton, which I actually really like for garments. It's really, it's not quite as scratchy as some, and it's a little bit lighter. I've used it for blouses, and I really like it. So, but I have to do the stupid mock-up, and it's boring, and I hate it. So that's on my list. Also on my list, and I don't have photos for this, I did a wearable muslin of the Jennifer Lauren Handmade Kinfolk dress, which is super cute. It was super fun to sew, and it needs a petite bodice adjustment and a narrow shoulder adjustment. So I'll link to that below so you can see what that looks like. It's very cute. I've had the pattern in stash for a very long time and finally just decided to make it. It's like a 40s style dress, and it's got princess seams and like grown on sleeves. It's really cute. I have fabric for it. I have cute print fabric for it, but I have to do bodice adjustment stuff, and I'm like, ugh. So that's on the list. Also on the list is I ordered her Asteria dress pattern, which is a square neckline, very cute, and I know what I want to make it out of, but I think it's gonna need some bodice adjustments, and it's just pattern stuff. It's just, and it's why I often make like multiples of the same thing, because I've put so much work into getting the fit right that I'm not gonna just like make one and be like, well, I'm done. I really, really like Jennifer Lauren Handmade. I think that she does not get the traction that she deserves in the sewing world, because her patterns are brilliant. They are very vintage style. I would say like more 50s than I probably normally do, but just really thoughtfully done. And she drafts for different cup sizes, so I don't have to do a small bust adjustment, which is amazing, because a small bust adjustment is a pain in the ass, because you like, not only do you have to reduce the dart, move the dart, you have to like add stuff. It's a pain. And so I don't have to do that. So I'm less salty about having to do other kinds of adjustments. So really recommend her if that's your personal style. It's not everybody's personal style, but it's mine. So that's coming up. I have quite a few vintage patterns that I've been buying. There is one that is, I would say, maybe my dream dress. That is a 1930s tea frock, and it has gathered, it's like gathered up here. It's very iconic. I will link below so you can see it, because I haven't made it yet. It's just like got gathers here, and there's a bolero. It's very, very cute, and I want it in red, like a garnet red. So that's kind of on my agenda. But again, like that's the kind of stuff, that's a project. That's not I have a day, I'm gonna make something cute that I can wear every day. That becomes a project. And so anyway, that's coming up, and I ordered a ridiculous amount of fabric for blouses, because I am losing my mind, because I have not been able to buy a woven blouse that fits ever in my entire life, / is my style ever. So I'm going a little bananas. So get ready for lots of blouses. So that is the sewing. This is definitely like my Jojo kicks up right about now pretty intensely, because it's, knitwear, like I can't wear it right away, whereas I can make a cute dress or like a cute pair of linen pants, and I can wear them right away. So there's that. So that is what's going on with sewing. So lots of vintage style stuff coming down the pipeline, always, sometimes slowly. So just a little bit of shop update stuff. The event that I alluded to was we had our Republica Unicornia open studio and pop-up on Saturday, April the 24th, so 2 weeks ago. It was amazing. I had so much fun. So we basically just turn our backyard into a very fancy yarn yard sale. My friend Brittany came and brought pottery. We got to see so many people. It was so wonderful. It feels like throwing just like a backyard party, and it was great. We just had so much fun, and so thank you if you came out to see us. It was lovely to see you. I made a cute outfit. The weather was perfect. It was just delightful. So I've been in recovery mode. So everything I had dyed a lot of yarn for that, and made bags and did all kinds of stuff. So all of that is going to go into the shop. I think I'll probably do the last Thursday in May as a shop update. That tends to work for me. So do a shop update then. So that's coming down the pipeline, but I am fully on fallow time. It got a little crazy. I started at the end of January, and I did a shop update in February, I did a shop update in March, and I did the open studio in April. So I'm a little like, what has happened? So I have been resting a lot, and, sewing a lot, and shuffling around the house a lot, and takes a long time. I love to go really hard, and then I crash. That is how I've been since I was a child. It's how I'm always going to be. It's just, I just build in time, and I run my own business, so I get to do that. So that is, the shop update will be the end of May, so it's lots of yarn. I dyed a lot of yarn. So it's a lot of yarn and some bags. And then I am going to, I think I can announce this. I hope so. I think I can. I'm going to be vending at SSK, the Super Summer Knit Together. I think that's the official name. I've just always known it as SSK, in Nashville on Saturday, July the 22nd. I am so excited. do yarn shows. It's not really my jam, but I have wanted to do this one since I started knitting. Like I knew, I was like, I want to do SSK. It's all kinds of very fun people are going to be there. It's the makers that I really love. So it's my first time, and it will be my first time vending. It will be my first time vending somewhere that's not like my backyard since 2019. So get ready for weird. If you're there, I'm weird. But Yarn Spouse will be coming with me. So I am going to start planning that at some point in the not super distant future. So if you are in the Nashville area, and I think the market's open to the public. It's like SSK is a retreat, but I think the market's open to the public. I don't know things about things. So very exciting, very exciting. So that's going to be coming up, and yeah. So that is the shop news. So funny. Sometimes when I'm taking breaks, I like think that I forgot how to do my job. Like I think I forgot how to dye yarn. I'm like, I don't know how to sew bags. I don't know how to do this. It's ridiculous. I'm sitting in my studio. I've been doing this for years. I know what I'm doing, but it's always a little interesting to get back in the swing of things, but we don't have to worry about that yet. So just, that's the shop stuff. So a little life stuff. We don't usually talk about this, but I'm going to. So I just feel like I need to give y'all a nature update. So a few weeks ago, we live in Atlanta. And a few weeks ago, I opened my studio door and there was a possum, or technically an opossum, but I'm Southern and we call them possums, sorry. So there was a possum in the tree outside of my studio, just hanging out. And they saw me and they kind of waddled. It was raining a little bit and it started to rain a little harder, and they like waddled off over the, like on top of the fence, started to rain harder, and they're like, no, and like came back. I lost my mind. I love possums. I think they're the coolest. We have a possum themed guest room. I am obsessed with them. And I like completely lost it. So we have been putting out a fruit plate for the possum. Yarn Spouse has named them Pedro Possum. And so we put a fruit plate out for Pedro. And Pedro's favorites so far are grapes and sunflower seeds and berries. Did not like carrots, did not like pineapple. We are just experimenting. So we have been, so we like feed the cats in the evening and like make the fruit plate for the possum. Also, I'm not even sure it's a possum that's eating it. It could be a raccoon, it could be a rat, it could be anything. But I think it's a possum because I think a raccoon and rats, I don't think they're fussy. Like in this whatever's eating it clearly has a preference. So we've been doing that, which has been delightful. I think at some point we're going to get a camera so we can watch wildlife eat things. Possums are great. They don't carry rabies and they eat ticks. And we have a lot of like meadowy, grassy stuff. And so ticks can, and deer, so ticks can be an issue. And so, we're just going to encourage. Also, so cute. Oh my gosh. It was so cute. I lost my mind. So we've been doing that. We also I started making homemade, for the Smithsonian, homemade nectar for the hummingbirds, and they're so happy. So they get like every other day, I wash the feeder, like I do what you're supposed to do, and they get fresh sugar water, and they are so cute and so happy, and we love pollinators. When we bought our house, we're on a lot of land, like for the city of Atlanta. I think it's over an acre, and our lot is sloped, and we're on like the side of a granite slab because North Georgia, like we're kind of on the side of not like a real mountain, but it's a hill. And North Georgia has red clay. So like a lawn, this is not lawn country. And so we just, partially because we didn't want to pay gazillions of dollars for a ride-on lawnmower and didn't want to keep up with it, we basically are rewilding our lawn. We don't live in a neighborhood with a homeowners association and nobody cares. So we've just kind of let it go. And it has been, so we moved in 2 years ago. It has been such a delight. We have foxes, we have deer, we have coyotes. We don't have dogs, it's fine. We have coyotes. We have tons of hawks in the area. We have a possum. Like we see all kinds of nature, and we planted native wildflowers in the front last year, and those are coming back. We have tons of bees and butterflies and hummingbirds. I mean, just the biodiversity of our little acre and a third it is a source of constant joy for us. And Steven does occasionally like mow things. He will get out with a weed whacker. He has a scythe. Like we try to keep it back because you don't want it to be like, total complete underbrush everywhere. But it has been, we both really, really enjoy it. And we have wild blackberries because they're weeds in the South. And so we are right at wild blackberry season. So I think tomorrow I'm going to go out in my overalls and my galoshes and go out to the power company field and yell at the snakes and pick blackberries. So we really enjoy that. We're in the city limits and it is so nice to have this little patch of biodiversity and everything seems very happy and we're very happy. So we are feeding the hummingbirds and the possums. So that is my nature update. Nature Watch 23. It's just good for, it just feels like something we can do. Just lawns are based in white supremacy anyway. Like that's just not my jam. It's just not our jam. Also, the idea that Steve and I have talked about this too, the idea that you could spend so much time doing something that isn't actually pleasant, that is actually worse, this feels like such a win-win situation. So anyway, we got our blackberries. I made jam in January last year, so I think there will be a pie coming up pretty soon, and I love blackberry season. It's very fun. So that is what's going on. Okay, this was a long one. I may be back in 2 weeks. I hope that whatever you are doing, you are having a great time, that you have all of your favorite beverages, that you're with all of your favorite people and or animals, and that you are making things that make you run around and fist bump and go, hell yeah, I'm a fucking genius. Because you deserve that. Take care and I'll see you next time. Bye.